Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about the concept of price. This is GCSE Economics, OCR Unit 2.4 and this will be useful for other specifications as well. And so enjoy the video. So first of all, price is a reflection of worth and has a role in determining an efficient distribution of resources. And to put in simple terms, price is something which will help you determine whether you will buy a product or not. Or in other words, it will help firms determine whether the products will be sold or not. So if something is expensive, you would probably not buy it, and if it's cheap, you will probably buy it. So price reflects the value or worth that people are willing to put on a good or service. This will depend on the satisfaction or utility they will gain from that good or service. If there is an increase in demand for a product, this suggests that it delivers greater utility. The price of the product will rise, reflecting this increased value in the market as a whole. This gives a signal to producers as to what they should produce and how they should distribute their products. So, to give an example of this, imagine a firm produces 100 units, right? No more, no less. And they are only producing two products. Say a demand for one of the products begins to rise and the demand for the other product remains more or less the same. So, what the firms would do is they would probably increase the supply for the favored product in terms of demand. So they'll probably do 70 units of the favored products and 30 unit of the stable product. So whose demand has not increased. As price reflects what firms will produce what consumers want to buy, meaning that the mechanism is efficient. How the interaction between supply and demand determines equilibrium price using a supply and demand diagram that will be in the next slide. So equilibrium price is that price at which demand is equal to supply. As you know, you can make a sense out of equilibrium. At this price, all products will be sold and all products will be sold. Equilibrium quantity is that quantity bought and sold at which quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied. That is what is meant by all products will be sold. Like it comes from this. All buyers can purchase everything they want. All sellers can supply everything they want. The market has said there is nothing left to buy or sell. And it is important to remember that it will be at this point that the firms will be able to optimize their profits. Now, equilibrium price and quantity you can see on the diagram. So there is one important. I'll just mark. So this. Oh, sorry about that. Just open the pen. Yeah, blue is nice. So this is the region of excess supply. We'll come to this in a minute. And this is the region of excess demand. So excess supply is when you have more supply than demand. Excess demand is when you have more demand than supply. Demand occurs when demand outstrips or is greater than supply, as I just said. This means that firms can raise their prices in order to improve profitability. You see that demand for your products is increasing, but your supply is still the same. So what you would want to do is either you would want to decrease the demand that it matches your supply to increase your price, because as the price increase, the demands decrease. That's the law of demand. Alternatively, you could increase supply to meet that same demand, right? And the price will be the same. So this is good for the firm but bad for the consumer. So maybe I should explain this using the graph, So you want to do is you want this demand, like let's say the demand is here and the supply is still less, as let's say the supply is at this point. You want this demand to come back here. So that is why you would influence the price, or you would influence your supply. So excess supply occurs when demand is greater than demand. Supply is greater than demand. So this means that firms will have to lower their price in order to sell their product. Alternatively, they could reduce supply and leave price the same. Yeah, that's common sense. I mean, it's just the opposite of what you did here. This is bad for the firm but good for the consumer. This is because they are not willing to buy their products. That is why there is low demand. And yeah, they have to decrease their prices. So, well, not a good sign for them. Supply and demand diagrams can be used to understand the impact of changes in equilibrium market prices. Okay, so this is very simple. As you can see, an increase in demand will see the demand curve shift upwards. So when we say an increase in demand, we say an increase in demand for every price. We that demand curve shift upwards and to the right from D to D1. Yeah, so this is a shift. This is not a movement. Movement is like from here to here. This would be a movement. This is a shift. And now this will cause price to rise to P1 and quantity demanded to Q1, right? So the firms say, okay, well, we will supply more, and well, since there is more people want to buy our products, we'll increase the prices. And thus the demand, we know that demand will still exist for that price from this graph, and thus a new equilibrium will be reached here at this point. Yeah, and this point we have a new market equilibrium. Similarly, a decrease in demand will see the demand curve shift downwards. Okay, so the firms see that, okay, people are not willing to buy our product, so what we could do is let's decrease the price. And the supply will also be decreased because the price is decreasing, so firms don't want to supply more. I mean, there is no consumers to buy those products as well, so they decrease their prices and a new equilibrium is reached here. And an increase in supply will see the supply curve shift downwards and towards the right from S to S1, as you can see here, and this will cause price to fall to P1 and quantity supplied to rise to Q1. This will have demand. So what you want to do is you will decrease the price, and so they will then increase their demand, and then eventually your supply will somewhat increase. And so this is what will happen here. So as you can see, the supply here is more than supply here. So this is what will happen, and a new market equilibrium will be reached here. But for that you had to decrease the price, and with some calculations you can determine whether your net profit here is how much different from your net profit here. Well, of course, if you are reaching the equilibrium here and you were not able to reach equilibrium here, so if you were reaching equilibrium here and you were not reaching equilibrium here, of course your profits are likely to be greater. And I think, yeah, reason supply curve shift upwards and to the left from S to S2. This will cause the price to rise to P2 and quantity supplied to fall to Q2. So now this is the exact opposite of what we saw in the previous slide. Well, you could take it as a challenge to somewhat understand it on your own, because that would make you feel whether you are going along the right lines or not, whether you are understanding the concepts or not. Now, well, real work market commodities, commodity market refers to all raw primary commodities. Soft commodities are grown and harvested. Example, coffee and wheat. Hard commodities are extracted. Example, oil and copper. And well, if you want to calculate the revenue from demand and supply diagram, it will always be price times quantity. So here you can see 6 units were sold here, 6 here, and at the price of 3, so 6 times 3 is 18. That's what your revenue was. And from the revenue, if you subtract costs, revenue minus costs, this gives you your profit. And revenue can be shown on a demand and supply diagram by using annotations. Yeah, okay. And that is it. So this is what you should have learned here. You can just give it a read. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, please like and subscribe. And thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video.